my strategy is to actually go into spaces that are already built out, like accounting firms or engineering firms, places or law firms, offices that were already subdivided for a bunch of professionals. We exclusively lease out offices, and we could use the space for free. So it's kind of like a office hacking. I would look for where the density is. Where's like the business center? I would also look for like neighborhoods that are transitioning. I like to move into spaces that somebody else already built out, right? Because then I'm just paint, floor coverings, modernizing it with maybe furniture and artwork, and I'm done. Would I do more of it? Absolutely. It just has to be the right time.
What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here, and I'm really excited for today's video where we're going to explore a strategy that we haven't really talked about much before. So we're going to talk about the rent-to-rent strategy. I'm joined by my buddy Karl Pierre, coming from the US. I think he actually shot this just south of Fort Lauderdale, if I remember correctly, but really excited because he's doing some interesting things in New York. What he's doing, those like beautiful skyscrapers that you see? Yeah, he literally will rent out just a floor and then re-rent it out piecemeal to other business owners that are looking for small office spaces. This is kind of like WeWork, but different. So again, if you guys are interested in a way to get into real estate, where maybe you can get into commercial real estate without a lot of your own money, Karl's got some really interesting perspective and experiences, and I just love exploring and diving deep into new real estate strategies. And right now, because of COVID-19, I think there's going to be some interesting opportunities coming up in the commercial real estate space. Now, there's going to be people making money and people losing money when it comes to commercial real estate in 2020 and 2021. But hopefully, Karl can help us understand how to be one of those people that makes money related to commercial real estate.
What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here, and I'm here with calling from Miami, right?
Yeah, Fort Lauderdale, but close enough. People know Miami.
Yeah, okay, awesome. And so today we're going to be talking about a really interesting real estate investment strategy that Karl's been implementing for a while now. And he calls it rent to rent. Some of you guys might think of it as commercial subleasing, but I think it's just a fascinating niche in the real estate market that we certainly haven't covered on my YouTube channel. And I don't see a lot of other gurus or teachers really touching upon the subject matter. So I thought it was really fascinating. So do you mind breaking down for us first, rent to rent? What do you exactly mean by that term?
Well, rent to rent is exactly what it says. You're actually renting a space or an apartment, whatever it is, and you're subletting and renting it to other people. And your goal is really to make a spread between what you're renting it for and what you're receiving in rental income from whatever the tenant is. Like I use this strategy also with Airbnb rentals. I'll rent out an apartment, furnish it, and then lease it out on Airbnb. And obviously the spread between the two is my profit. So the same applies when it's this commercial space.
Awesome. Yeah, we've touched on my YouTube channel in the past about the Airbnb re-rental strategy. I think that's really fascinating. Obviously, COVID-19 put a little bit of damper on that strategy, or at least in Canada, it certainly did. How did you originally stumble into rent to rent?
Like all things in real estate, by accident. So what ended up happening is I was renting a space for a tech startup that I had that was called, at the time was called Millionaire, and then converted to StyleScan and really went nowhere. But when we were getting space for this initial project, we're seeking cheap space in whatever place that we could find. And I came across this like 150 square foot space that was renting for $600 a month in Queens, New York. And it was in a dumpy building. It was like a warehouse conversion in like the warehouse district of Long Island City, Queens, that hasn't been gentrified just yet. And it was perfect because the price was right. But it was really dumpy, and the landlord was absolutely horrible about improving anything. Like people could literally piss in the hallways, and nobody was coming around to clean up. There was nothing really being done. And he had about almost 50 spaces on one floor. And actually, I came to find out that on the floor above, he had like artist studios that were bigger, but they were maybe like, I would say 600 square feet per space. So on the floor that we were on, there were about an average of 150 per space, renting out for like 500 to 600, depending if you had a window or not. And I just started doing the numbers, and I was like, well, if this guy is, pulling in almost 30K in rental income off of these spaces, and it was full, and he's running it like this, then I absolutely could go forward and do the same. And that's where the idea came from, was actually utilizing space like this and thinking that I could do it better.
Awesome. I love that. So just to kind of paint a picture, when you're going into a space, is it already subdivided and stuff, or are you actually like doing the leasehold improvements to like build out the space?
So yeah, that's a good question, because my strategy is to actually go into spaces that are already built out. So I seek out like spaces that used to be like accounting firms or engineering firms, places or law firms, offices that were already subdivided for a bunch of professionals. And then it's just a matter of me kind of reconfiguring those existing spaces. Because when I like sought out to reproduce what that landlord had in Queens, I first went to a warehouse, and then I realized that it's going to cost me a ton of money to outfit this warehouse. I got to run new electrical, new HVAC, new plumbing, all floor coverings, walls, partitions, doors, everything. And I was like, this is going to be an intense build out. So then I opted to looking into space in the city, because I thought it would be a better fit for my fashion company. And then I started to look at spaces that were close to built out to what I needed them to be built out to. So if there was like an oversized office for like an executive suite or something like that, I might convert that into 3 or 4 offices. Or if there was like a large bullpen that was used for cubicles, I would subdivide that into offices as well. So then it was just me doing like a partition wall here, a door there, new carpet, paint, and that was my build out. So instead of, spending anywhere between $20 and $40 a square foot to build out office space, just raw, simple office space, I'm, doing it for like $8, $9 a square foot, just to kind of make it up and get it ready for rent.
Gotcha. And so I'm sure some audience members are probably really new to this idea. They've maybe heard of places like WeWork. Do you mind breaking down what's the difference between what you're doing and say like WeWork?
The only difference between what we're doing and what WeWork is doing, it's funny, WeWork got started just a little bit before us, but obviously did a much better job at scaling. And they started in New York City as well, like actually 4 blocks away.
Oh,
so
really?
It was interesting to watch them evolve and continuously grow while we didn't. So it's a whole other story. But so the main difference between what we do and what they do is that we exclusively lease out offices. We don't do like co-working. We don't have any memberships. It's pretty much come in, plug and play, but you have your dedicated office. And I went with that model because to me, it was like less to manage, less people to kind of bring along. And also
less
New York
infrastructure, right?
Not necessarily. I think less management, because like someone who's renting a desk, right, for $250 a month, I feel like that person's going to be like high to turnover. I never studied their model to see like how sticky that $250 a month rental is. Someone who moves into an office for, a higher price point seems to be more sticky, more consistent than maybe somebody who just wants a place to work outside of their home, for instance. It's like, I don't know which one is better. I just felt like, if I was going to appeal to someone like me, the private office would be best, and it would probably lead to people who are a little more sticky.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
So I would say that's the main difference. Another thing that we don't do, we don't focus much on the social aspect. So WeWork is very high in design, high into the social atmosphere. So there's no beer kegs, there's no ping pong tables. You get 4 walls, 2 desks, chairs, common like reception area, kitchen, and just the basics of what people need. So it's not that elaborate of a build out, but it provides you the space that you need to work. And I would say that's the chief difference between us and them.
Makes sense. So when someone's renting from you, are you including like a telephone line, internet? Is there a receptionist at the front like section, or is everyone literally they're just renting the blank space from you and they're responsible for everything?
So it depends on the setup. So I have spaces that are no receptionists because they're smaller. I might only have like 12 offices there. So everybody manages themselves. But if I have like a floor imprint where it's the total space, then I might have a receptionist there because then it's more offices that might be like a space with 30, 40 offices. So just to manage the flow of mail, people coming in and out, people wandering in and not knowing where to go, it's a lot more difficult to manage without a receptionist. So it really depends on the space. As far as services that are included, it's always internet, water, coffee as like the basics. We don't charge for like conference room space. That's another thing some of the other companies do. It's like if you're going to use the meeting room, they charge you like an hourly rate. We don't do that. We kind of just say, don't monopolize the meeting room. Schedule it, be respectful of other people's time, and that's it. If you see it's getting a little out of control, then the receptionist moderates. But aside from that, the meeting rooms, use it as you need to.
Got you. Do you mind giving us a snapshot of what your business looks like today? I know when we're talking to other landlords, they might talk about, I've got this many buildings or this many doors. What would you talk about? Like, would you talk about number of offices or square footage of space? Or how would you kind of describe your business, like the size of it at this point?
So we have 47 offices spread out over 2 floors in a building. So it's a total of around 11,000 square feet. The square footage in New York is kind of a funny story as well. It's like fictitious square footage. I don't know. Like it's not, it's probably about 8,000 measurable, but they'll price it at 11,000 because they're counting their hallways, roofs, lobby, fictitious space. It's just the number that they advertise is irrelevant. They call it loss factor. And that the loss factor is not like columns. It's like whatever number we feel like putting up. But that's a different thing. So it's about 8,000 square feet, 47 offices, 2 floors.
Got you. Do you mind breaking down for us exactly how this first deal came together and what that looked like? And if you're willing to share, my audience loves diving into numbers and stuff. So anything you're willing to share, I know they'd love to hear.
So this is kind of off of memory. So the first deal, it was actually me and 3 partners. And what we did was we found this one small space. It was probably a little under 2,000 square feet, right? It was 2,000 square feet. It was a square-shaped office. So I already had 7 offices built along the perimeter, 4 windowed offices across the windowed side, and then 3 interior offices in this large bullpen. So 7 offices were already built. What we ended up doing is taking that bullpen and creating 4 more offices out of it. Now, at the time, this was coming out of the Great Recession, so prices were pretty cheap on rental space. So at the time, they wanted, I think it was like 4,400 a month, somewhere around there for the space. And it was 6 months security deposit. So let's just call that, 28,000. We probably spent around another 15,000 kind of decorating, building out the space. And then we had some cash for reserve. So we together put in $60,000 to get this first space going. At full occupancy, that space would do around 12,000 a month because like the windowed offices rented for a little more. So it was a spread between the 4,400 in rent, then minus the electricity, internet, coffee, cleanup crew to come in and clean up like once or twice a week. So at full occupancy, we would see about like a $5,000 to $6,000 spread on that operation. So you figure almost 100% return on investment within the first year. And a big chunk of that was already just stored away in security deposits. Right? So if you were to consider that security deposit comes back at some point down the line, then you get it. We have a 10-year lease on that first space. So, that's how it started. And the reason why it started that was because it was cheaper for us to get started and to really test the concept, right? So, I wouldn't encourage somebody to just go out there and say, all right, I'm going to do, 20,000 square feet, unless they're deep enough to
Yeah.
wait till it ramps up. So I figured, hey, you know what? At about 4 offices or so, we break even. And at
Gotcha.
the end of the day, we at least have space. So if we're at like 50% occupancy, we're even, and we could use the space for free. So it's kind of like a office hacking.
Yeah,
Right?
I think that's a
Like,
big point to make there. When you know you're going to be one of your own customers, it can give you a little bit more confidence to like jump into this sort of endeavor. Do you mind? I'm sure for some of my audience members, signing a 10-year lease sounds very intimidating or scary.
Right.
Do you mind just kind of did you have any concerns committing for 10 years to renting out this space? Is there any sort of way that can you pay a breaking fee to get out of it? Or are you literally locked in and committed for those entire 10 years?
Okay, well, I don't really get scared of financial commitments because it's either going to work or it doesn't. And I can't pay you if I don't have the money to pay you. So, I hope to pay you, but if I can't pay you, I can't pay you. But that wasn't the situation there. In New York City, they have what's called a good guy clause. Is that good guy clause states that if you give them 30 days notice, you're free and clear of the obligation going forward. But usually when you negotiate a good guy clause in, they're usually going to want a 6-month deposit or even a year deposit, because then they know that, hey, you know what, it's going to take us about 6 months to turn over anyway. So they let you off the hook, but then they're insulated with time to get it re-rented. So that's the difference. Some landlords won't negotiate the good guy clause and will try to hold you to the entire length of the lease. But once again, if you're taking out the lease without a personal guarantee and they sue you, or even if they sue you with a personal guarantee, it's kind of hard to enforce and collect on you. So I would say for someone who is concerned with like committing to the 10 years, maybe commit to a lower amount of years and, negotiate an option to extend. Right. That's one thing that they could do. Or just keep shopping around till you find a landlord who's willing to play ball with you. Right. It's, you don't have to necessarily agree to terms that don't fit you. You should know what your criteria is going in and what level of risk you can handle before you get involved. If you can't handle that, then don't do that deal. Do a different deal that matches you. Otherwise, you're going to be stressed out. Nobody wants that.
Yeah, that's great advice. So whenever I talk about new real estate investing strategy on my channel, there's always 2 questions that immediately come up. Do I need money to do this, and can I do it virtually? Do you mind exploring those 2 subject matters in regards to rent to rent? And I'm sure that there's edge cases we could get into where you definitely can, but would you say for the average person that's looking to start out that doesn't have any commercial real estate background, is it practical to expect to be able to do your first deal or transaction with no money, or to do it virtually?
I don't think it's practical to do anything without money. Like the thing is, you have to be clever with how you kind of pull money out of, existence, right? So I would say you absolutely need money. If you don't have money of your own, you need to find it, right? So
that's key. It doesn't have to be your money.
Yeah, you need to find it. So you need to, either bring in some partners like I did. You can also apply for loans. You can, maybe even apply for grants, right? Like if you're trying to do one of these spaces in a gentrifying area that your city is trying to kind of push business and push change, they may have grants available. And I even know a dude in Michigan. Like I have a friend who's an architect, and one of his students got a building for free from the city, and then got a loan and a grant from the city to repurpose that building. He turned it into a pizzeria, bar, and a co-working space, fully paid for by the city. Yeah. So, you need to be able to at least talk your way into that sort of deal or find it. So, short answer, do you need money? Yes. Do you need all of the money to be from your savings account? No.
Yeah, that's great. And have you ever explored or thought about, is there an opportunity to potentially partner with the existing landlord? Where some sort of profit split or thing like that?
Yeah, of course. Because the thing is, you're making a spread over what they would normally get.
Yeah.
right? So you can walk into a landlord, like to an office building owner or to a landlord who has, maybe they have a storefront, right? They're one of those small strip
Yeah.
malls with a second floor. They tend to have difficulty keeping tenants in there. You might be able to walk over to them and say, hey, you know what? Let me manage this, right? I'll
Mm-hmm.
get you the tenants. Let me know how much you want, for the space or whatever. Let me manage this. I'll ramp up to a certain point, and anything above this and the cost, like utilities, etc., I keep.
Awesome. Yeah, I love
Right?
that.
That's one way of trying to do it with no money. But even then, you might need furnishing,
Yeah.
unless somebody, lost their business and just left their furniture behind, which happens sometimes.
Yep.
You could do it that way too. But that would be one way to kind of weasel your way in without any money.
Yeah.
Right? Because the landlord is like, all right, you do the work. That's going to usually work with smaller landlords, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like a more seasoned landlord is going to have no part to that, right? But a guy who owns a small strip mall or a small office building, he might have had like a large tenant up there and they just moved out, or the guy died and he doesn't really know what he's doing. You might be able to swing that.
Yeah, I think that's a great tip. Are there any rules of thumb that apply to rent to rent? For example, when I'm looking for cash flowing rental properties in like just general single family or multifamily real estate, we love the 1% rule, right? Where you kind of look for 1% of the purchase price is the monthly gross rents. Are there any rules of thumb you're looking at? Like, is it a double your gross rent sort of model where it's like, hey, if I can't re-rent this out for at least double what I'm paying, I know that this won't work? Or
yeah, pretty much like that, because I would say double what I'm renting for, because that builds in your utility costs and then any kind of vacancies you may have. So, oftentimes we can kind of linger around 100% occupancy. But then, something like this will happen, like coronavirus, and we'll lose tenants there and have to kind of re-spool up. But I would say doubling the rent would be good. Like when I go in and I look at a space, I automatically take the square footage and divide it by 200, right? And that works for New York City, right? Because the room is going to be like anywhere from 88 square feet to about 150 square feet. Plus you're losing for hallways and other kind of lost space within the space. So I take whatever the measurable square footage is and divide it by 200, and I should get that many offices out of that space. So that's another, metrics that I use, because if it already has a certain amount of offices, then it's like, all right, well, am I going to be able to squeeze the rest in? And that lets me know right off the bat, like what number I could get to. And then I take whatever my average rental rate is for an office, and then I could project out quickly whether or not that sort of office would work. Because once again, in New York, like I said, you might see something advertised as 10,000 square feet. You walk in there and it's 5,000, literally like that crazy. So it's like, based on the numbers that they presented to you, like, oh yeah, I can bang out, 50 offices in here. And you really get there and you can only get 25, and the numbers just won't ever match up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are some great tips. What's next for you in this business? Are you guys currently looking to expand and grow? Are you maintaining what you have? What's
Just
the next
maintaining
step?
what I have, because that partnership kind of soured in multiple ways. I was married to one of the partners. We split. She's still a partner. And I'm, so we're there together. And the other two, once we were splitting, they wanted to be bought out. So would I do more of it? Absolutely. It just has to be the right time. I think I got in at a good time where there was a lot of office space available. So pricing was really good. Landlords were willing to deal. I think that might happen again, especially with more people working from home. And like I've lost quite a few tenants. They're like, hey, you know what? I can do what I was doing at home. I've proven that I can do it at home.
Yeah.
And when my kids go back to school, it's even going to be better. So I've lost some tenants to that. But what's cool, I think, and it's important for people to understand this, is with these executive suites or co-working space or whatever it is that I'm doing, we kind of satisfy a pretty unique niche, because we're the space that startups go to.
Yeah.
And we're the space that bigger companies downsize to, right? If
Mm-hmm.
you're experiencing, hardship and you're like, damn, this my lease is killing me and I have way too much space. You give up your office space, you still need a place to work and do business. So you might scale back into one of these offices and you might get 2 of them or 3 of them, and that might save you 50% on your rental cost. Plus you don't have all the overhead and worrying about copy machines and all that crap. It's already there. So you can kind of stabilize yourself until you're ready to scale up again and move out. So I think we kind of are like this buffer space for those 2 classes of people. So usually when there's economic downturns, we do get people who are moving in because they're like, I need cheaper space.
Yeah.
And they kind of move in for that reason. But ultimately, would I do more of these spaces? The price has to be right. And what I would do differently is make sure that my partners share the same vision with where we want to go. Because we had an opportunity to really scale aggressively. We had an investor come in and say that they wanted to buy in with a considerable amount of money, and my partners didn't want to do it, which to me was insanity, because there were tons of spaces that were open and it was working. We're getting tenants in and bigger footprints, and they didn't want to. And then you have WeWork, you have tons of other co-working spaces that expanded in cities. It would have been a good play.
Mm-hmm. If we were to pick you up and just drop you off in a brand new city or a new market, what would be the first things you would do or look at in order to figure out if there's opportunities in that market or where the opportunities are lying? Like, what would you do? That idea of like, hey, if you were to pick up a millionaire and drop them off in a new city with nothing, how would they get started? What would you do?
I would look for where the density is. Where's like the business center, right, of that city. Like right now, I'm in a co-working space that's owned by Regus. So this is like Regus Spaces, which is supposed to compete with WeWork, right? So it's hipper space. So this is downtown Fort Lauderdale. We're surrounded by like Bank of America building, Wells Fargo building. This is like their financial district. So it's humming with people. People want to work here. People want to be here. There's restaurants, bars, things to do after work. So it attracts people who want, a vibrant place to work from. So that's the first thing that I would look for. I would also look for like neighborhoods that are transitioning. If I was going to do like the artist studios, like, or the creative space, because you can get into like kind of dumpier buildings and you'll attract the artists who are coming in, the new tech companies, the new like engineering firms, woodworking guys. So those would be the 2 neighborhoods that I target, right? Like the like the Bushwick of this town, or the Midtown equivalent of that town, right? Where is the action? Because that's where people are going to want to be. And then I would also look for like, I never targeted like Class A buildings because they have more rules and they're less lenient. So I'd look for like Class B and Class C buildings, because they're going to offer better value on the space in the same neighborhood. And if your space looks fresh and the building is decent enough when you're coming in, then it's not gonna spook off anybody, because it's in the same good neighborhood or the same target neighborhood, right? If you're in the artist district, everything is crappy, right? So people don't care about that. So it's like the crappier the better. You get more value for the space. So those are the 2 things that I would target. And then, the next thing would be like the market research for how much space goes for. And Regus is a worldwide company. They have like over 2,000 office spaces, like which is nuts. So I would first contact them. How much are they charging for space in this same neighborhood? And then I also do like dummy ads on Craigslist.
Love it.
Yeah. So I'd put out like a dummy ad testing price points to see what people are responding to, see what other people are charging for similar space. Sometimes it's an attorney who's got an extra office and they're trying to rent it out. So I'll kind of get a sense of what the market commands, and then once again start working the numbers, right? So now that I know the neighborhoods and I know the price points, then it's time for me to start shopping for space that I can make it work in. And once again, I call it the hermit crab approach. I like to move into spaces that somebody else already built out. right? Because then I'm just paint, floor coverings, you know, modernizing it with maybe furniture and artwork, and I'm done.
Yeah, I love it. You're doing like the lipstick flips of commercial real estate. Makes a lot of sense to me. Thanks so much for breaking down the rent-to-rent strategy. If people want to follow along with you on your journey or get in contact, what's the best way, Karl?
Best way is my YouTube channel. It's ENTP, like the Myers-Briggs personality type, Echo, November, Tango, Papa. ENTP space life. Over there, we mostly talk about real estate, business, and then some of my variable interests. So if you're into aviation, travel, fishing, I don't know, anything else that I like to do, then I cover it there. But it's mostly real estate and business. So if you're trying to make money, I would recommend you come on over, check it out. We talk about how to invest in real estate, mostly in the United States, financing, rehabbing, all aspects of it, and certain things that, you know, other guys don't cover. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So if that's something that you would like, then swing on by.
Awesome. Thanks again. We'll throw a link in the video description down below. So anyone that wants to follow along with Karl in his journey, make sure you do that. And we'll see you guys in the next video.
Thanks again to Karl for taking the time to break down for us the rent-to-rent strategy. If you guys didn't know, Karl actually has his own YouTube channel, the ENTP Life. So I recommend you guys check it out. We'll throw a link in the video description down below, but he's documenting all kinds of cool things. So not just his real estate investing journey, he's also crushing it as a healthcare business. He's also dabbling in all kinds of other interesting things, and I'm pretty sure he's a pilot too. So if you guys like those bundle of random activities, make sure you check him out and his YouTube channel. Go give him a sub. Otherwise, if you guys enjoyed this video, smash that like button, hit the subscribe button if you're new to my channel, and jump in the comment section. What other strategies should we be talking about? Are there any real estate strategies you think that we haven't covered yet on my YouTube channel? What other little gems am I overlooking that I need to cover? Let us know in that comment section down below. Otherwise, enjoy the next video.